The village of Bosomtwe had many skilled men, but none were as gifted as Bonsu. He was not just a hunter, he was a legend. Every morning, without fail, he returned from the forest with a game, never empty-handed. People whispered about his skills, wondering if he possessed some supernatural power. How does he do it? The villagers would ask each other. Maybe he has a spirit guiding him, some would say. Or maybe he has made a secret pact with the forest, others would whisper. But Bonsu never spoke about his ways. He simply smiled, packed his hunting tools, and disappeared into the night, returning at dawn with his game. Beyond Aseko lay the neighboring village of Bosomtwe. It was an old village, with elders who had lived for over 90 years. But one morning, something strange happened. A small pond appeared at the edge of the village, right at the entrance of their forest. The elders gathered around it, staring in disbelief. "Has anyone seen this pond before?" one old man asked. "No," another replied. "I've lived here all my life, and I have never seen water in this spot." It was small, barely reaching a man's calves, but it was clear, pure, and emitted a mysterious golden light. There were no fish in it, no signs of life, just the glow that lit up the village and the forest at night. The people learned to live with it. They fetched water from it, but it never dried up. They stepped inside it, but it never got muddy. The pond remained a mystery, one the villagers dared not question. One night, Bonsu decided to hunt in Bosomtwe's forest. It was against the rules, but if one performed the right rituals, it was allowed. Bonsu, being a careful man, carried a bottle of schnapps for the libation. When he reached the edge of the forest, he knelt, poured the drink onto the ground, and whispered, "Spirits of the forest, I seek your permission. Allow me to enter and hunt tonight." What he did not know was that the scent of the libation had lured something out, a spirit, hidden within the pond, drawn by the aroma. Bonsu stepped into the forest, moving like a shadow. He had hunted for years, and he knew every sound, every movement in the wild. But that night, he saw something unusual, a beautiful antelope with golden, ringed horns, shimmering under the moonlight. His breath caught in his throat. He had never seen such a creature before. He knew at once that this was no ordinary animal. Still, he aimed his gun. A hunter does not hesitate. The gunshot shattered the silence. The echo rang through the forest, bouncing back and forth like 100 voices crying out at once. It was unnatural. It went on and on, for over 5 minutes, rolling through the trees like thunder. Bonsu's hands trembled. "This is not normal," he whispered to himself. Something was wrong. Slowly, he stepped toward the fallen antelope, his heart pounding. But before he could reach it, he heard a sound, a rush of wind, a slithering movement, fast and powerful. A python. And it was massive. The serpent coiled around the wounded antelope, circling both Bonsu and the animal. The hunter's sharp mind quickly understood what was happening. The python was checking for driver ants, Nkreni. Once it swallowed the antelope, it would have to stay in one place for a long time, and it needed to ensure the area was safe. Bonsu made a decision. He could not let the python take this antelope. Something inside him told him this animal was special, and now that he had shot it, he had to take responsibility. The python spotted him. It did not attack, but it followed his movements, watching him with cold, unblinking eyes. Bonsu reached for the antelope and lifted it. It was still alive. Switching off his headlamp, he moved through the darkness. The python lost track of them. But it was not giving up. Bonsu ran. The python followed. Through the trees. Over fallen logs. Across the damp earth. The hunter was fast, but the python was faster. It was only when he reached the edge of the forest, the small glowing pond of Bosomtwe, that the snake finally stopped. The antelope stirred in his arms. Its breath was stronger. Its legs kicked slightly. Then, without warning, it leapt from his arms and walked toward the pond. Bonsu watched in shock. The antelope stepped into the water. Its golden horns reflected the shimmering light. And then, before his very eyes, it disappeared. Sank. Vanished. The pond was shallow. It could not swallow a creature that large. And yet, the antelope was gone. Bonsu blinked. He looked around, hoping to see the antelope emerge, but there was nothing. Only the still, glowing water. And then he saw it. Beside him, lying on the ground, was a small pouch. He picked it up and opened it. Gold. Pure, shining gold. His hands trembled. Where had this come from? Had the antelope left it for him? At sunrise, he walked into Bosomtwe, still in shock. The villagers gathered around him. "Have you seen an antelope?" he asked them, his voice shaky. The people exchanged glances. "No," one of the elders said. "What happened?" Bonsu told them everything. How he had shot the golden horned antelope. How the python chased him. How the antelope walked into the pond and disappeared. The villagers listened in awe. They had always known the pond was strange, but this was beyond belief. The elders followed him to the pond. It was still there, shining as it always had. And beside it, under a large tree, lay another pouch of gold. At that moment, an old man who lived near the pond finally spoke. "The antelope you saw," he said, his voice filled with wonder, "is no ordinary creature. It comes from this pond. It is a spirit. And now we know, this pond is a god. A water spirit." From that day, the villagers of Bosomtwe treated the pond with reverence. They named it Bosomtwe, meaning God's lake. It became sacred, and people from all over came to see its wonders. Over time, it grew, expanding beyond the small village, becoming what it is today, Lake Bosomtwe, one of Ghana's greatest treasures. And as for Bonsu, he never hunted again. He had seen the mysteries of the forest, had met the spirit of the pond, and had been rewarded with gold. He lived the rest of his days in peace, sharing his story with those who would listen. And to this day, some say, when the moon is bright, the golden horned antelope still emerges from the waters of Bosomtwe, its horns shining like the stars.